Transition effects are effects that you place in between two clips, controlling how the image on the A side exits and how the image on the B side enters. It's certainly important to not go overboard on transitions, as it is a common mistake of some rookie editors, but you should use them judiciously. So let's take a look at how to apply and adjust transitions. I'm going to go into 9.3 and load my transition sequence here, and I'm just going to pick this edit here. So we've already made our introductions, and now we're getting the brief on what the mission is going to be. So let's add a transition here. Now, if you just click on the edge of a clip and you press Command T, then the dissolve, or the default transition for Final Cut, will be added. We got a taste of this in the last movie when we added dissolves to our still images, but let's go further now. So first of all, the default duration for a dissolve is 1 second. If I click on it, you can see up here that that's 1 second. If you want to change the duration of your default transition, you just come up to Final Cut Pro, Preferences, and then Editing, and then Transitions duration is 1 second. So if you generally want it to be a little shorter, you can adjust that. Now, you can also adjust it here in the timeline tactilely. If I click on the edge and drag this out, I can make it longer. I can also drag it in to make it shorter. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and talk a little bit more about the ways that you can manipulate your A and B shots here. If I click on these two lines, I'm not adjusting the duration of the transition. Rather, I'm rippling the A side shot. So I'm making my A side shot longer and shorter without affecting my transition. Let me undo that. If I click in the middle, that allows me to roll between my two shots, again, without affecting my transition. So you're able to do all of the trims that you were able to do before, even when a transition is applied. If I click on my transition and I want to change it to a very specific duration, I can press Control D and then type in the new duration. So if I know that I want this to be 10 frames long, I'll just type in 10, enter, and now I have a 10 frame transition. After all that, I'll go ahead and play through it so we can see how it looks. So that's applying a dissolve to just one cut point. I'm going to delete that for now. If you would like to apply it to both cut points on a clip, the beginning and the end, just select the clip rather than just an edge, and then press Command T, and it's added to both. Or you can select multiple clips. So if I know that I want dissolves in between all of these clips, I can just press Command T, and they all get added. I'll undo that, Command Z. I want to go to this sequence here because I want to show you what happens when you apply a transition to a connected clip. I'll zoom in here, and let's say that we'd like to add some dissolves in between each of these shots. So we know that we can just select all of them and then press Command T. And notice that I have the dissolves now, but what it did was it converted my connected clips into a secondary storyline. So whenever you add a transition to a connected clip, it's going to convert into a secondary storyline.
So in the United States right now, there's a little over...
So that's a dissolve. Again, far and away the most common type of transition. Now I want to show you what else is available. I'm going to come over to the Transitions browser, which is this last button here, and keyboard shortcut Shift-Command-5. And here are all of the transition effects that are available to you in Final Cut. Here we have the categories along the left and the effects within those categories along the right. Here's the cross dissolve, which again is the default transition. If for some reason you want to change your default transition, you can actually make any transition the default transition, and then when you press Command T, that will be the transition that's added. So say, for example, I want to change my default transition to fade to color. I'm just going to select this and then right-click and choose Make Default. And now, if I go up to All, you can see that fade to color is the first one listed. And then if I come and apply it, I'll press Command T. Now, instead of a dissolve, I have a fade to color.
Some types.
There's so many veterans out there.
Now, I wouldn't really put a transition in between these two clips, but I did so to make a point. I'm going to play over this one more time, and I want you to listen as well as watch.
Some types.
There's so many veterans out there.
Did you notice that it wasn't clean? That's because when you apply a transition, it applies it to the audio and the video. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to open up my audio and video by selecting both of these clips and then right-clicking and choosing Expand Audio. And so not only has it applied the fade to color, but it's also stacked my audio. So if I don't want that to happen, which in this case I wouldn't, I can just trim these back so we have nice clean audio, and then I can collapse this back together. Just collapse audio, and now it should be clean.
Building of some type.
There's so many veterans out there.
Let's come back to the transition browser. If you want to see what any of these look like, it allows you to sort of just skim from right to left, and it goes from the forest to the mountains. And this gives you a sense of what's going on. Now, again, most of these you should probably never use for a standard sequence, hopefully for obvious reasons. But if you should want to use any of these, a lot of these contain additional parameters that you can change in the inspector. Let's just take my fade to color, for instance. I'll select this transition and then open up the inspector, Command 4. And this has a few things that I can change. Most obviously, I can change the color. So if I want to flash to white instead of fade to black, I can do that. It also shows me where the midpoint and the hold point of this fade is going to occur. I'll just reduce the duration of this slightly. So if I wanted to flash to white, I've made that change.
Building of some type.
There's so many veterans out there.
If I want to change a transition, I can just drag and drop one transition on top of another, and it's replaced. Notice it's replaced at the duration that I had it before.
Type.
There's so many veterans out there.
And then just notice that whatever transition I have selected, I can come to the inspector and make a whole new set of changes. But the most important thing about this particular transition is that I actually delete it because it's just not necessary. So I'm going to select it and press delete. So I just told you how you probably aren't going to use too many of these transitions very much, but I want to show you a transition that is awesome, and it's actually new in this version. I'm going to come to dissolves, and it's flow. And what this does is smooth out jump cuts between like shots. So take a look here where I have Mike on screen and I have a few jump cuts. I'll go ahead and play through these edits.
Seen is that they're all trying to do something for the veterans. Job placement, resume writing, skill building.
And I've actually just come out of some B-roll and I'm going back into some B-roll. And I just want to see Mike here, so I don't necessarily want to cover up these jump cuts with B-roll. So what I'm going to do is just add the flow transition. Go ahead and just drag and drop this right on those edits. And now watch as I play through these cuts.
What we've seen is that they're all trying to do something for the veterans. Job placement, resume writing.
So almost like magic, the shots melt together. Now, there are a couple things that I might want to change here. Notice that if I go into the inspector, there's really nothing that I can change here except for the type of audio crossfade that occurs. But sometimes you may need to make the flow transition just a little bit shorter so that it's a little bit less perceptible. Now, this doesn't work all the time. If I come down to this shot right here, there's another jump cut, which I'll play through.
Environments where real leadership is demonstrated.
So here his hands are together, here his hands are apart. Even the awesome flow transition isn't going to make this work. So I'll apply this and then play.
Environments where real leadership.
So the face and the background blended together pretty well, but there's just no fixing the hands.
Environments where real leadership.
So in this case, I would certainly want to just cover that shot up with B-roll. I want to address just one more thing about transitions. I'm going to head back over to my montage sequence here. And I want to talk about how transitions actually come together. And that is by working with the shot handle. Now, just to remind us what handle is, I'm going to open up the precision editor. So I'll double click on this edit. And so here's my A shot and here's my B shot. And here is the handle for my A shot and here is the handle for my B shot. So when I apply a transition, it's actually going to reach into the handle to make it work. So if I apply a standard transition, I'll just press Command T and I'm flowing from shot A to shot B. And as you noticed, it was a fade to color because I changed it from my default transition. I think I'll go ahead and make my cross dissolve my default transition again so that now when I press Command T, it will be the dissolve. And I'll add it to all of these shots and I'll press Command T. And here's what I want to show you. It says there is not enough extra media beyond clip edges to create the transition. Now, in this case, extra media is that handle. So on one of these shots, I don't have enough handle to make this work. So what it's offering to do is to ripple trim the media so that it does create the transition. So if I say, okay, go ahead, create the transition, notice that now I have transitions between each of my shots, but one of these shots got shorter, which means that the entire sequence got shorter. So I'm going to undo Command Z, And I happen to know that it is this edit point with the issue, so I'll double click and I'll show you we don't have any shot handle on our A shot. We do have plenty on our B side. So when you see a warning like this and you don't want to decrease the duration of your shot and in turn your project, then you'll likely need to just climb in and perform some type of trim, like a slip trim, to bring back some shot handle so that you can add the transition without issue. So as you can see, applying and adjusting transitions is an easy process, and as long as you use them judiciously, transitions can add the necessary melding of images that can help you tell your story.